What about London as a city? I mean, again, I walk around and this is not sustainable. The city's going to die at this standpoint. But this is a beautiful, amazing, vibrant city, but it needs to get back to work. But people need to get a push back to work somehow, right?
Seemingly, people are frightened of traveling. I don't know whether it's a combination. I mean, I hear this from my listeners. It's a combination of people not wanting to get on a train because they're worried about getting an infection. And then there's other people who don't want to get on a train because they refuse to wear a mask. I don't think it's 50-50. I think it's probably like 80-20. Right. And the smaller number are the numbers who don't want to wear a mask. Because the roads are absolutely jam-packed, incredibly jam-packed, right? Because one of the things that people forget about the way our society has changed is that all this online purchasing that people do creates a hell of a lot of traffic.
Yeah.
If you order 5 things on 5 different days, you've got 5 different vans coming to your house, right? Now, can't tell me that's not going to have some kind of impact when millions of people are doing it on an hourly basis, Yeah. And so the trains are still empty. So, people that I know who are coming into work in London, say from Kent, an hour, 45 minutes away on a train, literally deserted at rush hour. Same with the tubes, nobody's on them.
Yeah, I mean, I took one this morning from my place. Nobody's on there. There was an article in the New York Times, your favorite place, but recently said that actually the subway is one of the least likely places to catch it because people aren't talking on there. They're spaced apart. New York is the same thing. They're at 20% capacity, and this is the lifeline of that city, as you know. But you got to do something to get these people back to work and back in offices. London is 20% of GDP in this country, and at this rate, if it's doing 20% of the business it was doing, I'd be shocked.
Right.
And long term, it just doesn't bode well for anything this company.
Well, I don't understand what the buildings people are doing. I don't understand how commercial rents are not absolutely plummeting.
Yeah.
And I don't understand how even ordinary residential properties aren't plummeting. Because I'm hearing that a lot of people are moving out of London. I think unfortunately, we've got this kind of, I don't want to say it, but I'm going to say it, bedwetters kind of organisation of society where people are frightened of everything. And they just, my father would say they're not people for the trenches, because when the shit hits the fan, these guys are all running in the opposite direction. They're not worried about you. They're only worried about themselves. And they just go, oh, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to get involved. I'm just going to leave the city and I'm just going to work remotely on my laptop because it's made in China, it's made by Apple, but I'm a very fine, upstanding person. I read The Guardian and I won't have any right-wing nonsense in my house. And you go, yeah, well, what are you doing for the country exactly? Nothing.
So that's my question. Is this all related? Is the wokeness and the cancel culture related to the snowflake culture who doesn't want to come back to work and suck it up?
Yeah.
I mean, look, 2 things. I was here for the bombings in 07.
Yeah.
And it was horrific. But one thing I noticed is, I think they were on a Thursday. The next Friday, Londoners went back to work.
Yes.
And I was like, wow, these are some
And they went back on the tube as soon as they could.
I was like, these are some badasses. Right. And I was in New York for 9/11, and that city was reeling for a while.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, these are the Brits, Battle of Britain. These people go, they stiff upper lip, they go back to work. I was impressed.
But now
I'm not.
As a broadcaster now, if you say, let's get back to the Blitz spirit, you get ridiculed by these people because they're ashamed of their own history. These are the kind of people that would attack me for saying Churchill was a great man. Let's take his statue down. Why? Well, because he firebombed Dresden. Yeah, well, we were at fucking war with them, if you don't mind me saying so. That's why. And I'm afraid if you start attacking other countries, you might be facing a bit of an attack yourself. War's horrible, but we won. And if we hadn't won, where would we be? We'd be being told what to wear, what to do, and what to eat. A bit like now.
But you can't say that now. Right, but you can't say that now.
No.
Right? It's much worse in America, but they say everything comes here a few years later, so it's going to get worse.
Well, I don't understand what's happened in America because when I lived there, it was a very, I wouldn't say, peaceful place, but it was a very lovely country. And one of the many reasons that I wanted to live in America was I always admired it. I was admired in the same way that Margaret Thatcher and Ronald Reagan got along.
Yeah.
There was a certain kind of thing about America first and about, I remember getting in a cab. They used to have these Skyline cabs that we used to use all the time.
Big ones.
The big blue Buicks.
Oh, yeah, they would drive you places.
Yeah, and they would take you to the airport and stuff, because I was always going to the airport. And I got in, there was a guy called Charles Bremner, who at the time was the Times correspondent there. And he'd been in Russia, he'd been the Moscow correspondent. We got in this car, and the guy was clearly Russian. He had a very Russian, heavy accent. And Charles, very sort of, slightly pompously, turned to me and said, yeah, watch this. And he said to him, where are you from? And the guy goes, New Jersey. And that was where he was from. Of course, he was from Russia originally, but as far as he was concerned, he was an American. He was a guy that lived in New Jersey, and that was now where he was from. And that kind of, for me, encapsulated America, that people could come to America, particularly New York, from all over the world. And they were New Yorkers almost immediately, you know, because it really was that kind of place. And now I see some of the stuff that goes on, like Portland. I had no idea what that's all about. I watched the report last night on Channel 4 News, which I watched just to get annoyed, really, because Channel 4 News I hate with a passion. But
why?
Just because it's so biased and so pretendingly straight. You know, I mean, Jon Snow cycles to work every day. I'm not a big fan of cyclists for a start. He also...
it's a token gesture like Cameron used to do.
Yeah.
You're like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
You got your SUV following you to work. What point are you trying to make?
What point are you trying to make?
Right, okay.
And, you know, I've always said that anyone who wears a tie that's more eccentric than he is isn't very eccentric. And he likes to think of himself. He's not a very nice guy, Jon Snow. I mean, I've met him a few times.
Okay.
But they just do this ridiculous kind of relentless lefty journalism. But they were doing this piece about Portland, and it was basically going, the problem is, and even they'd actually seen it, they were interviewing black people saying that this is not what we want. You know, we don't want people rioting on our behalf. Most of these people rioting are Antifa, they're fascists, they're, you know, they're all white. You know, they're looting, they're smashing up the place, they're chucking things at the police. They're not doing it in our name, but except they are.
Right.
And that's very strange. That kind of whole Antifa thing didn't exist in the 80s in America. I never saw it.
Not at all.
No.
I mean, back then, you know, when I grew up, we looked up to heroes. We didn't look up to victims.
Yeah.
But that changed. It changed kind of when the world got digital too.
Yeah.
Like you said, where everyone maybe had a voice, and then now it's gone accentuated where you celebrate the victims.
Well, somebody said to me, actually, I think the first iPhone came out in something like 2005.
Yeah, it was 07, I think. But
It
yeah,
was 07.
right.
It was it's around then.
Right.
And really since then, it's all started to go a bit wrong.
Right.
You know?
'Cause
So there must be a correlation.
Citizen journalism and
Well, there
everyone
is
has
that.
a voice.
Yes.
And, okay.
And that's the other problem with some of these like citizen journalism escapades.
You don't like those people, do you?
Well, the thing is,
Because you put in your time.
well, it's not just that I put in my time, but there's a reason why I do what I do, and there's a reason why I believe what I believe, and I know what I know. It's because I have to stress test everything, and you can't just walk into a room and see what you see. If you're not trained to see what's actually going on, you don't see it. And I think that's the problem. So a lot of people who think that they know what they're doing as journalists make massive... This is why Katie Hopkins made so many mistakes, because she's not a journalist. She said the wrong things at the wrong time to the wrong people and to the wrong audience.
Okay. What's another example of that? Like a citizen journalist will go to like a Black Lives Matter protest and they'll see one thing, whereas if you went there, you would say, no, this is happening.
Right.
I see this and I see this and I see the police and also...
I mean, one of the things that worries me a lot is all of the videos that you now see doing the rounds on Twitter. I'm very, very cautious with those. I tend not to retweet anything that I can't verify.
Okay.
Because I've seen in the past where you've got, I mean, for example, there was a picture going around at the weekend of this march in Berlin, where loads of people, supposedly 1 million people, were marching against wearing a mask.
Yeah.
Now, according to the official figures that I saw, and again, you can always say, well, how do you trust the official figures? It was 17,000, which is still pretty sizable. There's nothing wrong with that. But why say it's 1 million? And why show a picture of a different march?
Yeah, I saw two pictures too. I saw the first one that was like 30,000.
Right.
And then I saw some other one that was like the bridge was packed.
Right.
And I was like, these are not the same.
It's not the same. No. And that's the trouble. I mean, you can watch a picture of, say, a police officer beating somebody up. And for all I know, because I can't see everything, it might not be a real image, or it might not be a current image. It might be from 2 years ago, it might be from 4 years ago, or it might be real. But if I don't know the source, then I'm very wary.